I'm David. This is Michael. Welcome to our show where we understand it's pedantic to scrutinize the minutiae of our favorite movies and TV shows, but stay with us while we banter, because, while it is of no true consequence, still we endeavor to be precise about the classification of the genre when we ask, does it sci-fi though?
And as always, we welcome your likes, subscribes, and Patreons. Today we're looking at a movie on Netflix called See You Yesterday. Predominantly black film set in today's society in Flatbush, New York, where we're looking at two high school kids who are developing a new technology. So what is the rule change in See You Yesterday?
So we get it right at the beginning. It's a short movie. We don't waste any time. We have the temporal dislocation. And so in our real world, we don't have that. In this world, these two genius high school students have developed a way to time travel.
So what is the distinct event and conflict fuel of the time travel dislocation?
So, it's not until much later we get what's almost could be considered a plot twist. It's unforeseen and tragic. We're going through all this science of what can happen, what should happen. We're dealing with how to time travel. And then, we witness this tragic event of police brutality that ultimately the police murder her brother, Calvin. And now the conflict fuel is, so the distinct event was, normally you can't witness another event again. It's set in stone. But in this world, we can repeat events. And so the conflict fuel is, she has to keep going back to it. She feels she has a responsibility to change things for the better. And she keeps endeavoring to do so.
But that's not the human problem. What is the human problem that they present in the narrative?
So we're really struggling to deal with loss. CJ has dealt with the loss of her brother. And, we see her mourn for it, and, we see her struggle with it. And, she has some kind of like temperamental outburst. Her heart is really driving her. But then once she gets past some of those like instinctual emotional reactions that, are very human and very authentic. I think they portray it very authentically. We get to a problem of the mind of okay, I don't have to accept this. It's like in the stages of grief, she doesn't have to go through the denial because she can do something.
All right, well, let's look at the mirror. What does this movie provide as a reflection on society?
I think of all the points on the checklist, the mirror might be where See You Yesterday really shines, because it holds up. It was done in 2016, and so the events we witnessed, like when the police have their knee on the back of Sebastian, were much harder to watch this time. Now that we've seen it happen on film or on camera, and then seeing it happen in the movie was even harder to deal with. And so CJ's struggle to deal with her past and change her past is also a reflection on our country as a whole, trying to deal with our past of, systemic racism, prejudice, and bigotry.
Let's move on to the what if question. What sense of wonder did we provide?
So I think this question was best done by Michael J. Fox.
If you had that kind of power, what would you do? What would you change?
Like, that is the what if question. Like, he throws it in there right in our faces.
Very early in the film.
Very early, right at the beginning. And so CJ wonders this through the movie, but then we're also left as the viewers wondering it, like, if we had access to CJ's power, what would we do with it?
Right. Because initially the characters are very focused on what this development that they're working on will do for their education, scholarships, colleges, instead of what this power would represent.
It's a big question.
So now we move on to the examined ideal. What ethical questions did we ask and answer?
So I think the examined ideal here is really interesting. So we have this cliffhanger at the end as CJ's coming towards us because she's gone for another jump. And who knows if there's more jumps after that. And we don't know what she's doing. We don't know, did she try to sacrifice herself? Does she have some other clever solution that she's tried to come up with one of the other a solution to one of the problems they dealt with? But, one thing that I think is interesting is that Sebastian tells us,
We go back and try something like this, there could be bigger consequences than Jared's broken arm.
that you got to be careful about changing little things in the past, because who knows what that could affect in the future.
Right.
That these little things in the past that seem small can have big ramifications. And yet, in our daily lives, we tend to think that the small things we do in our life will be meaningless. But if there's one thing time travel tells us, is that small things can be hugely influential.
Right.
And so, the examined ideal is a call to action. Like, we're left uncomfortable, just like CJ's uncomfortable, like she's not accepting it. And so it kind of pushes some responsibility onto the audience. We have an ongoing problem. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
And the time travel shows us that things that might seem small that we can contribute could have large effects in the future that are completely unforeseen.
It's the butterfly effect without the temporal element that they tried to examine there.
Yeah, and it's suggesting that, we may be traveling through time at a steady rate forward that you and I can't change like CJ does, but, we can set events in motion ourselves.
All right. So what rating do you give this particular film?
I'm going to give it 3 fingers and a thumb.
All
I
right.
thought it was really good.
Well, I'm going to give it 18 stars.
Out of,
25.
okay. Is that better or worse than 3 fingers and a thumb?
I think it's a little worse,
Okay. But still pretty solid.
but a solid movie nonetheless.
Yeah, and obviously very strongly sci-fi.
Very sci-fi.
It's sci-fi.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for sticking with us. While our opinions really don't matter, your likes, subscribes, and Patreon support actually does. And remember, keep asking the question, does it sci-fi though?